Today on Mormon Times, identical twins with both Down syndrome and leukemia.
This isn't the end, and just because we've got a little stumbling block doesn't mean you need to trip over it and stay on the ground.
An amazing family who faces more trials than most does so with faith, inspiring others in the process, building character and teaching compassion.
If I did nothing else as a mother, taking them on an African humanitarian mission is the best thing I could have ever done.
Important life lessons learned outside the home bring hope to girls in Kenya. And gardening with a group.
Oh, we've had neighbors. We've had neighbors walk by and say, "What are you guys doing?" Well, can I be part of it? And they'll come and grab a drink and go grab a shovel and go help. We don't even know their names.
A stake project that's breaking down boundaries and nourishing a community in more ways than one. Plus, a treasure in the rainforest. Members of Manaus, Brazil expressed gratitude for the new temple there. Good morning and welcome to Mormon Times. Your child has cancer. Those are words that no parent ever wants to hear. But imagine hearing that diagnosis twice. The Tillotson family has identical twins with Down syndrome who are also fighting leukemia. Despite their trials, the Tillotsons say life is good, and happiness is how you respond to Plan B.
Will you come out? Come out. Life at our house is chaos and mayhem and a lot of fun. We have 7 kids and they range in age from 11 to 1.
Yeah, I'm Nate and I'm 11.
I'm Gabby and I'm nine and a half years old.
James and I am 8.
My name's Andrew and I am 6.
And then Abigail is older of the twins by 3 minutes.
Natasha.
And Corbin.
There's always something crazy going on.
I mean, people have large families and it works, and
It's not for everyone, but it's for us. It's been about 1.5 years since Abigail was diagnosed with ALL leukemia. Abigail was 2.5.
8 months later, Natasha was diagnosed with the same ALL leukemia. They're the only ones that are known in the world to both have Down syndrome and ALL leukemia.
I just felt kind of just depressed about how they both had cancer.
Why is this happening to me, to my kids, to my family, and why now? And I think the first knee-jerk reaction is, God must hate me.
And I thought my family deserved, if we were doing what we were supposed to, we deserved to have a home of our own, and we deserved to have, you know, a job that would make enough money to cover the costs associated with all of our children. I've been able to see, I guess, differently that there's so much more of a plan.
I love you more than I could ever promise.
We wouldn't have any idea what cancer was, and our parents wouldn't be who they were, and I wouldn't be who I am.
And you take me the way I am.
I like the twins in our family because they're so fun to play with. I'd take away the cancer probably because the Down syndrome is what makes them really funny. It's been a great experience.
When I step back and look at it, I can easily see that we haven't been abandoned, but like our daughters, we just have to go through these really hard times before, you know, we earn the right to be able to live again with our Heavenly Father.
This isn't the end, and just because we've got a little stumbling block doesn't mean you need to trip over it and stay on the ground. No, he doesn't hate me. He actually loves me quite a bit. And loves my family, loves my girls.
What a great family. We wish them all the best. To leave messages of encouragement for the Tillotsons and to help if you can, look for a link on the Mormon Times TV Facebook page. Well, the most lasting lessons are often taught by example. And for a mother from Bountiful, her example of service inspired her daughter to make a career of helping those in need. At age 19, Gabrielle Ernest and her mother started a nonprofit organization called Education for Generations. Their mission at the moment, to make life better for young women in Kenya.
Kenya is a third world country. You wake up, you don't know if you'll eat. In fact, you don't even think about it because it's not there. People have to survive on less than $1. If lucky, maybe on $2.
I remember being very emotional that first trip, feeling, how can I help? I'm not helping enough.
When I was 15, my mother took me on my first it was a medical mission for her. It was a service mission for me.
I wanted them to realize 2/3 of the world is not like where you live.
I knew there was poverty out there, but I've never really seen it as much as I did there.
My name is Caroline Ashiono, and I'm from Kenya. Compared to what life is in different places, life in Kenya can be tough. I grew up always with the thought of, I have to go to school.
Went to Kenya on the service mission, and the primary purpose of that service mission was a school that she had organized with her husband.
We expected to have maybe not more than 50 children. We had 150.
When we heard that Caroline had been given kind of a directive from what you would call kind of their Bureau of Education or whatever, over there, that somebody needed a college degree for the school to remain open, then we put the wheels in motion and got her over here on a scholarship to LDS Business College.
God just made a way.
In terms of them being hungry and a life of poverty and deprivation, education completely changes that.
I know the sweetness of school. It changes lives.
They do not take education for granted. They study until it's too dark to study.
I'm here for a purpose, and I know that that purpose is to touch other people's lives.
Every time you just help one child and they come and give you a hug, or they show you how well they're doing in school, it just makes it all worth it, just one child.
Educate this generation.
And together we will still going to make it.
Educate this generation.
Thank you and bless you. Educate this generation to educate many generations.
She can change the world.
Caroline, Rhonda, and Gabby believe that if they can build a girls' school in rural Kenya and equip those young women with the right education, then it will help unlock their potential to greatness and influence their future families. For more information on this group, just go to our website at mormontimestv.ksl.com. Another group of church members also reaching out to offer aid in Africa are professional golfers, Lorette Moritz and Cecily Lundreen. They recently teed off at a golf course in Norway at 4 a.m. to play 100 holes of golf in a single day. Their goal was to raise money for a charity that they helped organize called Eyes for Zimbabwe. In 1996, Moritz and her coach, Reeve Neild, organized the charity after meeting a 12-year-old girl who had been blinded by cataracts. Well, since then, with the assistance of volunteer surgeons and through golf fundraising events, Eyes for Zimbabwe has been able to give the gift of sight to thousands of cataract patients, all ages. Coming up next, a stake-sponsored plot teaches more than just gardening.
If families and their neighbors can work together and build unity and bonding, we'll be a much better society.
And a legacy of sacrifice paved the way for a new temple in Brazil.
Who would have thought back then
E quem poderia imaginar que isso poderia acontecer?
that right here on the Rio Negro there would be this beautiful edifice of a temple?
Tucked away in the Amazon rainforest, the saints there have shown incredible faith. We'll share some of their stories coming up. So how do you get your kids to work, make it fun, and teach several important gospel and life lessons in the process? Members of the Salt Lake Cannon Stake seem to have figured it all out as they work together to become self-reliant in their community garden.
I just wish my garden at home would do as well as this. We're growing something more than just weeds here.
Cannon Greens is a hub of activity all summer long.
It's fun to be out in the sun.
We want to involve everybody. We want to teach the youth how to garden and where things come from.
It's fun, and Glenn and I can't go anywhere without somebody saying, what are we going to do in the garden next? Or, did you see our tomatoes in our box?
This is the 4th year for Cannon Greens. The city gave the Salt Lake Cannon Stake this parcel of land to beautify. Then the church stepped in to help with its food initiative, part of the self-reliance program, providing some of the startup supplies. It's all about helping people help themselves, especially in these uncertain economic times.
Hopefully they're growing enough that they're consuming, they're sharing with their neighbors, but they have surplus that they can do food storage. And so it's kind of an integrated, holistic approach to self-reliance.
Each ward has at least 2 grow boxes watered with a manual system, and it goes on year-round.
We've got a little hoop house on the backside, and so we actually grew a number of different vegetables, and we're harvesting in April.
There's so much growth and new life, and all it takes is a little bit of care and the community, and it really has come together.
And the adults even lure the kids into work.
With goodies and rewards and encouragement and parents.
What's your favorite part?
Pulling out the weeds.
This day there was a weed-a-thon for the children.
And what do you get when you put your weeds in?
A surprise.
Yeah? What'd you get?
A spring.
Nice. How many do you have to collect?
10.
I've never seen so many kids so excited to weed in all my life.
Because it makes me stronger when I do that, and it makes me like to work more.
They advertise their on-site how-to classes right on the front fence.
If they can learn here, come to the classes, and then take this information home and do the same thing at their homes, that's what our hope is.
They teach everything from composting to food preparation to beekeeping.
People say, you know what? I can do that. I thought it would be harder than that. I can do that.
So many lessons taught and learned here for parents and their kids.
I brought my 3 little brothers here today, and so you get to be a good example of hardworking, and you get to come closer as a family, because when you have a common goal, then it brings you closer together when you accomplish things.
So with hard work, it teaches, especially these kids, that, I mean, things can happen if you work hard.
Learning about a lot of harvests, you plant the seed, you reap the reward. Those are life's lessons that spill over into every aspect of our life.
Why is it important to even come here and do this?
Because then you can learn how to sustain for yourself and be self-reliant.
We're not divided by streets or neighborhoods or age or ethnic groups. We're just one big happy family.
Farron Squires says the Cannon Greens Community Garden may also serve as a model for what can be done in other inner city areas in the U.S. If you're interested in finding out more about self-reliance, including topics like food storage and emergency preparedness, go to the church's website at providentliving.org. Imagine traveling by boat for 36 hours to get to the nearest temple. That's what these saints had to do, but that's a part of history now. Coming up, we'll share stories of faith and sacrifice from members in Brazil. And a dinosaur named after a Mormon.
It's called Rigby's Rex in the news.
It was a discovery of a lifetime for one paleontologist. The newest temple in the church is located in the rainforests of Brazil in an isolated city called Manaus. Sarah Weaver from the Church News had the privilege of being there when this temple was dedicated. She's got some amazing stories to tell about her experience there. Glad you could be here with us. What is the church like there, and how far did these people have to travel before this temple was built?
Well, Manaus is a very isolated area in northern Brazil. It's located in the Amazon rainforest, and it is pretty much surrounded by major waterways and the rainforest. And so there's no roads that lead out of Manaus to other areas of Brazil. And so if church members wanted to go to a temple up until now, they had to travel long distances. 20 years ago, the church had the very first, what they call caravan, temple caravan, that left Manaus. And those members went 7 days down the Amazon River by boat. And then they got on a bus and went another 3, 4, 5 days until they got to the temple in Sao Paulo. When they got there, they had cramps in their legs because they'd sat in these confined spaces so long. And but they were just happy to have reached the temple.
So almost 2 weeks each direction just to get there. That's pretty amazing. So I'm sure you, meeting these people and mingling with them and getting to hear their stories, you learned some incredible stories of sacrifice.
Yeah. A few years ago, they dedicated a temple in Caracas, Venezuela, and then members were able to take a bus, which about cut the time to get to the temple in half. But that didn't mean that the trip was not without incident, because many members still had problems. I met one couple. They were coming home from the Caracas temple, and the bus rolled. And the woman that I met was paralyzed in the accident. And we talked, and she mostly talked about her blessings and how happy she was to have had the opportunity to visit the temple before the accident.
Wow. And you said some other people even had other things like robbed or something on the way to go to the temple?
In fact, her mother-in-law, on a trip earlier, went down to Sao Paulo. And during that trip, the bus was assaulted by 5 masked bandits. And they took everything those people owned. And they said that the bandits were upset. They said, how come a group from Manaus that's on a bus doesn't have more money? And the members said, well, it's because you don't understand where we're going. You know, these members had sacrificed everything they had to get the money to make the trip. They had very little to steal on them. But when they got to Sao Paulo, the members there knew they were coming and knew what had happened to them. And they gave them food, and the temple president helped them. And I asked this woman, who was with her mother, I said, did you ever get discouraged? Did you feel like the Lord should have protected you while you were on your way to the temple? And she kind of got upset. She said, no one ever thought that. She said, we had our lives. And then she said something I'll never forget. She said, we were happy we had reached the temple.
So just grateful for the blessing of being there no matter what. What about the youth? They always do a big youth cultural celebration. And
the youth in Manaus are amazing. The church is actually growing in Brazil. Right now there's 1.1 million members in Brazil, and 6 temples. They're building a 7th temple. And the youth are the ones that are going to inherit this great legacy across the country. They go to early morning seminary. They were so happy to participate in the cultural celebration, and they're very articulate about the church.
That's wonderful. You got to go to one of the early morning seminary classes even. What was that like?
Yeah, it was just an outside seminary class. They came, they brought their scriptures, and they were happy to be there.
And you said in the cultural celebration, it wasn't just youth like it is many other temple dedications.
Yeah, this was not a youth cultural celebration. This was the entire church in Manaus. There's 30,000 members in Manaus living in 8 states. And I think everybody who could had some role to play in that celebration, whether it was in the choir or learning the dances.
How wonderful. I'm so glad you had that experience. Thanks for sharing it with us. We're so glad you were here today.
Thank you.
The missionary effort worldwide is nothing short of miraculous. Missionaries are taking the gospel to some of the most remote areas of the world. We got a letter from Sister Welling serving in the Philippines Cebu mission, and she tells about sharing the gospel there.
We had an adventure yesterday. We went to visit a family that lives clear up in the middle of nowhere. We had to cross the river a whole bunch of times to even get there. We also have 3 families we're working with to get them to the temple. It's just frustrating to see how hard Satan is working on them to make sure that doesn't happen. I know the gospel is true.
We love hearing from our missionaries, and if you have a letter and pictures that you'd like to share with us, send them to Mormon Times TV at ksl.com. This next story is a blending of science and religion. Sam Penrod shows us how one member's profession as a paleontologist never diminished his love for the gospel.
What I like about dinosaurs is I like that they're ancient.
Kids have always had a fascination with dinosaurs.
Sometimes they can be nice to you if you take care of them and like that. It's cool to know that they actually were around at some period of time. They're great.
And that was no chore for Utah native J. Keith Rigby Jr.
My father was a professor at BYU in geology, and then as my father continued to do his geologic research, of course my brother went with them. That was his introduction to paleontology. I think he had always intended to be a geologist like Dad.
Over the years, Jay's love for paleontology grew, and so did his yearning to share what he loved. He became a professor at Notre Dame University, where he would take children, students, and even foreign dignitaries out on field operations.
He had a base camp set up in Montana, and then they would travel out various places.
And it was during one of these field operations where Jay led a group from the Earthwatch Institute to the greatest discovery of his professional career.
I remember the excitement my brother had when he came to the house and was talking to my parents about it.
The find was one of the largest and most complete Tyrannosaurus rex skeleton ever discovered. The Rigby Rex, as it became known, thrilled the science community.
You don't normally find this complete of a skeleton, and it's been able to document a third finger on a Tyrannosaurus rex that they weren't really sure about before. And so everybody's had to update their idea of what a T-Rex looks like.
A born teacher, Jay always wanted to share his love of learning with others.
He would have Cub Scouts come into his office, and he would tell them that rocks tasted different, and you could tell by how they tasted what they were made out of and whatever. And he would have these Cub Scouts lick these different rocks, and then he would tell them what it was, and they were always impressed with that.
While Jay loved dinosaurs, his family says his priority was his faith.
The week before he died, he had been teaching his wife's Relief Society lesson. He often taught Sunday school. He taught Sunday school for a number of years. He taught seminary for a number of years. He was very active.
In the scientific world, Jay may be remembered for the Rigby Rex. His family believes being remembered as a husband, father, and friend is what Jay wanted his legacy to be.
More than his scientific contributions to the world, I think he would rather be remembered as a religious man and a good teacher. He cared a great deal about his family.
Sam Penrod for Mormon Times.
Thanks, Sam. And thanks for joining us today on Mormon Times. We hope you have a wonderful day.